through on a Sphinx's Revelation player, you just give them time to drop that land so that they can actually go Sphinx's Revelations for, say, 3 for their first one, or even 4 for their first one, instead of doing it for 2. And that means they're all the more likely to draw to their second Sphinx's Revelation, which in this case is going to be for probably 6 instead of for 4. You know, it just cascades into this, I guess you could say, element of utter control pain, where you're the sad aggro player in that matchup, you're the person trying to be the beatdown, and your opponent sits at a healthy cushion of life with a full hand full of cards, and you're down to your last card in hand, hoping that you can make something happen.
Yeah, in this matchup, I think it really is all about those Sphinx's Revelations and things that can keep him alive. And Jack Fogle knows exactly what he wants to do. He has 4 Sphinx's Revelations, he has 6 sweepers, he has a lot of removal, and he has ways to get there. So I think his deck's very well positioned in this matchup. But, you know, similar to what we saw in the other semifinals match, Eric does have some resilient threats. He has Restoration Angels that can come down at end of turn. He's got some Hasted Thundermaw Hellkites. Thragtusk and Huntmaster are both cards that can potentially require 2 removal spells. He's got 2 Garruk Relentless in the main deck that can supply a stream of creatures, and another 2 Garruk Primal Hunter in the sideboard that I'm sure we'll see come in.
Yeah, when it comes to his sideboard, I think Eric has a lot of options. Garruk Primal Hunter, Angel of Serenity because he's a Cavern of Souls deck, Zealous Conscripts to steal one of those Planeswalkers, Triumph of Ferocity ×1, awesome card. I am a huge fan of 1 Triumph of Ferocity. Way back, maybe about 4 months ago, I was playing mono green aggro for a bit online. Not too much success. Had 4 Triumph of Ferocity, was really impressed with the card, but the more I played it, I was like, you know, 4 is too many. I keep on flooding on my Triumph of Ferocities. Let's go to 3. Okay, that's too many. I keep flooding on Triumph of Ferocities. Let's go to 2. Okay, I've got 2 Triumph of Ferocities in my deck. Whenever I draw the second one, it's really not great. Let's go to 1. And I've seen 1 Triumph of Ferocity in the sideboard now of a lot of players who I think have made the same decision. I know, talking with Brian Kibler at the Los Angeles Star City Games Invitational, he had something very similar to say about Triumph of Ferocity. So I really like that Eric is down to exactly 1, which I think is probably the correct number if you're going to run that card in the sideboard.
Yeah, getting it down is good, but you know, you don't want to draw more Triumph of Ferocities. You want to draw more creatures to keep it live. You want to draw more things to close the game out with. It's interesting in this case. I think we could see him bring that Angel of Serenity in, not for the way that it might be more commonly used to clear out a bunch of creatures, but just as a large threat that can put a bunch of Eric's creatures that have died under it, so that if Jack does deal with it, then Eric's hand is refilled with, you know, as many as 3 new creatures to cast that Jack will have to deal with.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that I think is really important to note, those 4 Bonfire of the Damned, while they might have been very useful leading into this, I think that the Bonfire is very weak in this matchup. That's an easy 4 cards to take out to fit in all of these cards we've been talking about. But then, aside from that, we've been talking about Boros Reckoner as the best card in Standard. I would be surprised to see Boros Reckoner in the deck in games 2 and 3, should we get to a game 3. So right there, if he takes those 8 cards out, he's got lots of room to work with. And what do you know? There's 2 Garruk Primal Hunters, 1 Angel of Serenity, 1 Zealous Conscripts, 1 Triumph of Ferocity, 1 Cavern of Souls. That would even leave him with 2 extra cards left to work with. So maybe he'll even keep in a Boros Reckoner or 2 or a Bonfire or 2. And I think he's got a really easy sideboard for this right now.
Yeah, I can see arguments for both of those cards. Boros Reckoner just being kind of nice on his curve, and Bonfire maybe being a late fireball that works well with his Farseeks and Avacyn's Pilgrim. If the game goes long, it can be a way for him to sort of counter that Sphinx's Revelation, if he manages to miracle it. But yeah, I mean, I think he's got some pretty good options after sideboard. The Planeswalkers are great, and we've definitely seen them used to good effect against control decks already this week.
One of the things to think about here, these players are in the semifinals of this Star City Games Open Series Standard event here in Cincinnati. But coming up pretty shortly is Legacy. And if you've been to big Legacy events in Ohio, you know that Ohio actually has a very large Legacy crowd. I'm excited to see what Legacy stuff happens here. I'm still thinking about the various Legacy Grand Prix that we've had in this area. You know, perhaps one of my favorite moments in a Legacy Grand Prix, watching Brad Nelson take Junk to a top 8 of the Grand Prix here only a few years ago.
Yeah, and quite a few Legacy GPs in Columbus. My first Grand Prix ever actually was a Grand Prix Columbus. It was Legacy, the one that Steve Sadin won. So we see Eric starting off here with a Rootbound Crag, and Jack with a Glacial Fortress.
Yeah, I like that Grand Prix. I played White Green Prison.
I think I played Threshold.
Farseek from Eric Rill.
And we'll see.
Actually, I lost to Mike Bernat in day 2 of that and went on a complete tilt, and it was the last time I think I've ever tilted, because I tilted so bad I was like, never again, I'm not going to let myself tilt.
Yep.
Now, Eric Rill names Cavern Minotaur.
Ooh.
So we will see a Reckoner in this game, game 2. Now, as we said, there's only 6 cards coming in from his sideboard. I don't know if he kept in 4 Boros Reckoners, but he at least kept in enough to want to name Minotaur.
We are probably going to see that Boros Reckoner come down. I don't think he would name Minotaur just to throw Jack off.
Oh, I agree.
Jack does have counter magic, so I think we will be seeing those Boros Reckoners. At least one.
Now, one of the things that's very interesting is I can actually see Jack Fogle siding out his Dissipates because of Cavern of Souls and bringing in Negates to fight against cards like Garruk Relentless, Garruk Primal Hunter, and the like.
Yeah, they are very important cards in the matchup that can't be made uncounterable with Cavern of Souls, and we do see that Boros Reckoner come down. We see Jack Fogle with a Devour Flesh that he may choose to use now, he may wait. See how he decides to play this one.
And
I think I do see a couple of...
Nice. Blind Obedience. That's awesome. We have from Twitter, and if you're not on Twitter, joining in the conversation, you should be. Use hashtag SCGCIN. But Jeremy, that's at Circa, asks, does Jack Fogle look like Jerry T? Well, let's take a look at Jack Fogle and see what we think. I don't know. Does he look like Jerry T?
And we see that Triumph of Ferocity come down.
I guess he looks a little bit like Jerry T, but not so much. Thanks to Jeremy at Circa. And Blind Obedience faces off against a Triumph of Ferocity that we were talking about, and that Boros Reckoner. I predict we're going to see a dead Reckoner, including some extortion from the Blind Obedience. Eric Rill will gain 3 and then have 1 life drained from him to Jack Fogle.
And yep, there goes the Boros Reckoner. So we'll see if Eric can add another creature to the board to turn that Triumph of Ferocity on. Looks like he has a Garruk Relentless and what I believe is a Huntmaster of the Fells in hand. I'm not sure he has a 4th land though. And we see an alternate art Avacyn's Pilgrim coming down.
There are so many alternate arts these days, it can be hard to keep track. I mean, we're at the point with the various different promo foils, judge foils, things that are printed for special events. Ooh, look at that. Supreme Verdict to take out a single Pilgrim. That is the power of Triumph of Ferocity.
Yeah, every creature represents extra cards drawn on Eric's turn, so Jack has to answer all of them. And we see a couple of Dissipates in Jack's hand, and...
Oh, wow. I don't think that Jack will any longer be able to answer the Triumph of Ferocity unless he actually gets rid of specifically it. He's going to have to use some Oblivion Ring style effect. Looking at Jack's list, there are exactly 0 Oblivion Ring style effects. So we're going to see Triumph of Ferocity making Eric Rill into the player that gets card advantage.
Yeah, this could be a little bit of a backwards game where you see Eric just out-carding Jack, even potentially through those Sphinx's Revelations if he's able to keep creatures on the table, which looks like he will be with that Garruk that's going to supply him with a stream of those. I believe I saw Jack draw an Obzadot, which is interesting in this situation because it might be a card he would normally want to blink out to get that life drain, but if he leaves it in play, then on Eric's upkeep, Eric's going to need a creature with 5 power to actually draw a card off Triumph of Ferocity.
Now we see Jack Fogle do a main phase, think twice, hunting for land, and does not find it. Eric Rill remembers the Triumph of Ferocity trigger, gets the extra card. I think this is going to be the beginning of the end for Jack Fogle this game.
Yeah, as we said, he has to answer all of he has to answer all of Eric's threats, and Eric drawing 2 cards a turn is not going to help him do that.
Eric does not even have to play anything else, and he can just sit right here with his Triumph of Ferocity and his Garruk, and basically the card there, Triumph of Ferocity, is picturing exactly what's happening to the Liliana-style player. It's just hand on the throat, about to just knock him out.
Yep, and we do see Jack draw a land. I'm not sure if he has any islands or plains in play. I can't tell if that's an isolated chapel or godless shrine, so we'll see if that's going to come into play untapped. Jack actually does have 2 dissipates in hand, so you know, thinking about countering something that Cavernous Souls isn't naming or countering those planeswalkers. We see a Restoration Angel come down from Eric, and I believe I saw at least 1 or 2 more of those in his hand.
Now, the Glacial Fortress that Jack Fogle just laid came into play tapped. Sad news for Jack there, really. But, I mean, it is what it is. He's got all of these funky lands, but sometimes it doesn't play out like he would like it to.
Yep, and so we see that's going to delay the Obzadot, and I think we see a hand of 2 dissipates, a Sphinx's Revelation, an Obzadot, and another spell at the back of his hand. That Restoration Angel is going to come down, and Restoration Angel allows Eric to play at the end of Jack's turn, basically, and not have to commit on his own turn to casting a spell, potentially leaving himself open to a sweeper. So we're going to see a lot of damage coming across here.
In for 8. 7, I should say. 2, 4, 7.
Yep.
That is not 2 Restoration Angels, that is 2 wolves.
It looks like they're paired up.
Yeah.
Although we know they're not.
I mean, Garruk Relentless just sitting there, being relentless.
Yeah, produced 3 or I believe 3 wolves so far.
Think twice flashed back. I think he's thinking about extorting. I would extort.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else that he can do with that 1 blue or white, and he does choose to extort, going up to 10 and dropping Eric to 21.
Looking for the Terminus. Not there.
Yep, just 5 lands and a Blind Obedience in play for Jack against Triumph of Ferocity, 3 Wolf tokens, Restoration Angel, Garruk Relentless, and 4 lands for Eric, who has a handful of cards, which is true for both players, but Eric has a much more substantial board.
You can see the pen coming out. This is the symbol in my mind that Jack Fogle is doing math in his head.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm at 10. That's too close.
Yeah, he's writing on an imaginary sheet of paper in his mind.
Yeah, we see some decent defense in Jack's hand, but a little light on lands. So we'll see how many of those spells he can actually cast before he's overrun by these creatures. Tapping 5, chooses to go with that Obzadot.
Drains for 2, puts a large creature into play, and at least for now stops the Triumph of Ferocity. Oh, wow. Huh. He's going to choose to flicker it out. I don't know if I like that one bit.
Yeah, not a fan of that. He had the ability to stop the Triumph of Ferocity, and
that's death on the table.
Yep, I think we see 12 power there. So unless Jack has a Slaughter Pact.
If the life totals are correct, that's death on the table.
Yep. And Eric thinking about his options. players discussing something. Eric with just a handful of cards, what looks like 2 Avacyn's Pilgrims, 2 Huntmaster, 2 Boros Reckoners, so he did leave in at least 2 of those Reckoners. I wouldn't be surprised if he left in all 4, having named Minotaur with that Cavern.
Okay, I think what happened there is that we have the life total slightly off, and he lays a Boros Reckoner and then has Garruk hit it in order to finish Jack Fogle off.
That is a nice little interaction.
Yeah, I definitely think, though, the Obsidian should have stuck around just hanging out. That would have gained Jack Fogle an additional 2 effective life and cut off Eric from a single card.
Yeah, it it would have gained him the 2 life later, but later was too late, and that 2 damage to Eric really, Eric being at such a high life total, I don't think that 2 damage was going to matter. And as you said, it would have turned off Triumph of Ferocity for that turn, so we'll see what these players have for game 3. Looks like Jack may be considering his sideboard, Eric going over Jack's deck list, wondering if he wants to make any changes. Looks like he's just shuffling up. And Jack, considering his current composition, I wonder if he may be thinking about those negates after seeing Triumph of Ferocity and Garruk, if he doesn't already have them in his deck. Even though Eric is pretty spell light, the spells he does have are incredibly important in this matchup. So
yeah, this is true. Now, we saw how much power Garruk Relentless managed to put into play that game. Just wolf after wolf after wolf, turning on the Triumph of Ferocity. I mean, Jack Fogle wanted that Triumph of Ferocity to not work out for Eric Rill so badly that he supreme verdicted away a single Avacyn's Pilgrim.
Yeah, and as far as Planeswalkers go, Jack does not have good ways to deal with them. We don't see the typical Detention Sphere or even Oblivion Ring, and I don't even see Lingering Souls unless I'm missing it.
No, there's no Lingering Souls, there's no Detention Sphere, there's no Oblivion Ring. And only 1 Restoration Angel in the main, though he has Restoration Angels in the board. So it's not like he can go, surprise, from the clouds comes an angel to save my day.
Yeah, he has very few good options against those Planeswalkers. So I think one of his plans definitely has to be stopping them from resolving in whatever way he can, or they're likely to just take the game over. He isn't that well suited to fight against a constant stream of creatures.
I know, talking to Jack yesterday, Jack was talking about Restoration Angels in his sideboard as one of the key elements to his success this weekend. He didn't tell me why he only ran 1 main, but he said that the 2 extra Restoration Angels were something he was using a lot in order to basically fight a lot of Game 2 fights with creatures. Take care of, I think he was using them largely to take care of things like Geist of St. Traft, but I'm curious if he's going to bring in these as one of his few ways to fight a Planeswalker.
Yeah, we definitely might see that. We saw in round 10 actually a Geist get ambushed by a Restoration Angel in that way, so a good use for it. Having a lot of answers to Geist is always good for control decks. I think we may see those Restoration Angels coming in. I think Jack understands how big of a problem those Planeswalkers are for him, and Restoration Angel, a decent way to deal with them. It is blocked by other Restoration Angels, but can't have everything.
Right. Now, one of the things to think about this weekend, the number 1 and number 2 seeds for this tournament at the end of the Swiss was Esper Control, mirroring the Pro Tour, where at the Pro Tour, the number 1 seed, Esper Control, in the hands of Ben Stark.
Yep, and we saw both Esper Control decks advancing from the quarterfinals, and we've already seen 1 fall to Black-White Zombies. So we'll see if the other Esper Control player can get through to the finals, or if it'll be a Naya on Zombies matchup.
I'm actually kind of rooting for Eric Rill here, even though Jack's deck I think is good and he's been playing great Magic all weekend. I think it'll just be neat to see a Naya deck doing as well as this for our event. Jack Fogle with a mulligan.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of Jund decks over the past, Return to Ravnica and since Gatecrash has been released. Naya is becoming more popular, but this would be a big finish for the deck. And I think that matchup would be pretty interesting. Eric has bigger creatures that are a little less resilient, but still pretty resilient. I think those bonfires would be really big.
Very effective in that matchup. For those of you who are just joining us, I'm Adrian Sullivan here with Ben Hayes. This is Star City Games Live. We're at Cincinnati, Ohio for the Star City Games Open Series, wrapping up the standard. 679 players, now down to only 3. One player waiting to play, the winner of these 2 players for the final match.
You see both players shuffling up. Match tied at 1-1. We just saw a Garruk Relentless and a Triumph of Ferocity completely take over that second game in the hands of Eric Rill, providing him with a ton of a constant stream of creatures, both from the Garruk and from the extra cards he was drawing, and too much for Jack to overcome. So we'll see how this third game goes. I think it'll be important for Jack to be on the play, get out ahead of those creatures, start his chain of removal spells earlier, start his Sphinx's Revelation chains earlier. So I think it's a question of whether Jack can get to that point where he is chaining Sphinx's Revelations and drawing massive amounts of answers, more Sphinx's Revelations, and just gaining an unreasonable amount of life.
Now, Eric Rill, this is his highest finish so far in a Star City Games event. He did play at the Invitational in Indianapolis in 2012, but this top 4 finish here, definitely a good showing for him. And I'm sure he's looking to turn this into the beginning of a Star City Games Open Series run for, invitationals and more.
Yeah, and it's he's in a good spot to get some points here, chain this and an invitational together. We see an isolated Chapel from Jack Fogle. We see his hand with a Blind Obedience and a Supreme Verdict, at least that we've seen, and Stomping Grounds comes into play. Untapped, used to cast an Avacyn's Pilgrim, getting Eric off to a quick start. And we see a Watery Grave drawn by Jack. Looks like a couple of lands. And we will see... Oh, there's a Watery Grave, but there's also that what appears to be a Blind Obedience behind his Supreme Verdict. And it does come down.
Down it comes. Jack Fogle. This is his best finish in a Star City Games Open Series event. He did get 9th place the last time we were in Cincinnati, just a few short months ago.
So Cincinnati's his place. And Farseek comes down. Eric just deciding which land to get. And between the Pilgrim, if it stays around, and the Farseek, we could see something pretty big from Eric next turn. And that Farseek grabs a Temple Garden. And passes the turn over to Eric, who draws a Restoration Angel. So unless he still only has one, we'll probably see that used to good effect.
Dissipate, Restoration Angel. I think I saw Think Twice. I'm not sure about that one, though.
Yeah, we see Garruk Primal Hunter over on Eric's side, along with a land, a Thragtusk, and what looks like a Thundermaw Hellkite. So lots of powerful 5-drops. We are going to see that Garruk come down.
That won't last. Is he? Oh, he does not have a second blue. That is not a blue source there. So Jack Fogle is actually just not able to counterspell that.
Yep, Godless Shrine, Watery Grave, and Nephalia Drownyards. Does not cast Dissipate.
Boy.
This is really backbreaking for Jack. That Garruk came down. And if he doesn't have a blue source this turn, we're going to see just another 5-drop come down, and And this could get out of hand very quickly, even with just that Garrick.
Oh boy. Jack Fogle, I believe that's Isolated Chapel right there, paying 2 life.
Yeah, as good as the mana is after Gate Crash, not perfect. And we see, looks like an Avacyn's Pilgrim drawn, Sacred Foundry coming into play untapped.
How about this guy? How does he
Oh,
sound?
Thragtusk. And
Looks like he sounds good.
if there's an attack, we
Draw 5, he
Wow.
says. Can I draw 5?
Oh.
Who is the beatdown? Eric Rill. Who is the control? Eric Rill. I'm going to tell you this right now. You do not want to be a player sitting down against an opponent who is both the beatdown and the control. Usually that means game over.
Yeah, more cards, better board, Planeswalker in play. Oh, wow. We see that Restoration Angel come down. Gonna ambush one of those creatures and then take out the Garrick. So,
I mean,
you know.
Jack is fighting back, but I'm going to tell you, I don't like his chances.
yeah, it's going to be very rough for him with Eric now having a handful of cards after already casting so many spells this game.
Jack loses 1 life, but
Jack takes 1, and he's down to just 3 cards and 4 lands in play, so he's going to need a lot of help. And a Sphinx's Revelation drawn, if he does develop his mana more, that could help.
still choking on only 1 blue source. So we're going to see this Restoration Angel come in and kill the Garrick, I believe. And there it goes.
Yep.
And Eric Rill flicks the die to the side, lets Garrick die.
And that Thragtusk really representing a big problem for Jack. Not a great card to use. Be using Supreme Verdict against. That 3/3 will come back and still represent a good amount of damage. Sun Petal Grove comes down, and we see Eric with just a handful of spells at the ready.
In for 6. Jack goes to 10.
And down comes Thragtusk
Oh,
number 2.
jeez.
Ugh.
It just keeps getting worse for Jack Fogle.
And still just 1 blue for Jack that dissipates sitting in his hand. 4 mana tapped. Drown Yard's going to be activated, targeting himself.
That puts a Devour Flesh in the graveyard. The Angel sits back on defense. Negate comes too late to stop that Garrick Primal Hunter. The best block that Jack Fogle can put down is blocking one of these Thragtusks, falling to 4.
Yeah, this does not look good for him.
His hand, Negate, a Dissipate he can't cast, a Sphinx's Revelation he can't cast, and finally a Supreme Verdict. I think he's going to pass the turn.
Yeah, I mean, if he casts that Supreme Verdict and Eric does have a Thundermaw Hellkite, then that'll be, just passes the turn.
Cincinnati players, there's about 45 minutes left of registration for the Legacy Open.
Yeah, it's looking very grim for Jack.
No line to register for the event, so if you want to skip
Wow.
Yeah.
Zealous Conscripts. Second blue source, my kingdom for a second blue source. Jack Fogle, all he needed to have this game, I think, be an entirely different one, is a single blue source on turn 3 more than he had. That would have stopped the Garrick Relentless. That would have meant that there wouldn't have been 5 cards drawn, and that would mean I think he would have won this game. But instead, as good as the mana is, just like you said,